Hey everyone, and welcome back to Step Forward. This week, I want to share with you the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. As you know, habits are a double-edged sword. Your current habits can either lead you to a better life or hold you back year after year. And it's no exaggeration to say that if you can control your habits, you can control your life. So let's take a quick look at ourselves. Are you making progress every day, or are you pretty much the same person you were last year without much change or growth? Building and maintaining habits is not a new topic, and for many, the book Atomic Habits is probably nothing new. Before reading it, I was already familiar with many similar books on habit formation. Some approach it from a psychological perspective, while others offer practical tips and tricks. But what makes Atomic Habits fresh is the author's clear, practical, and concise way of communication. Most importantly, the core value I took away from it is a crucial point the author makes. To change yourself is to change your identity. Instead of forcing yourself to stick to a habit through sheer willpower, it's far better to change from the inside out. All right. Let's dive into this incredibly useful book. Live Like a Bamboo Tree. The renowned American psychologist William James once said, "Sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny." Good habits will make your life, but often we tend to turn a blind eye to small changes. We ignore them because we convince ourselves that big success requires massive action. So many people overlook the value of small daily improvements. And because of that, we procrastinate time and time again. To make matters worse, we often lose patience because we don't fully grasp the immense hidden value of tiny, incremental changes. But these small things are exactly how we create compound interest. The book mentions a formula. If you can get 1% better each day for a year, by the time you're done, you'll be 37 times better. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for a year, your current abilities will drop to nearly zero. Many people might dismiss this as a simplistic analogy, but I hope you'll set that aside for a moment and test this formula for yourself. When we haven't even started making changes, jumping to conclusions is just making excuses. Tiny changes can produce remarkable results because maintaining habits is like creating compound interest for your life. Take a look at this plateau of latent potential graph. When we do something, we often idealize our actions, thinking our goal is a straight line upwards because we always want immediate results. But in reality, building a good habit is a curve. In the beginning, when you're just starting to adjust a habit, you'll see this curve initially dip. At this point, when you don't see much difference, people often get discouraged and doubt whether their efforts are even worth it. This downward curve is what's called the valley of disappointment. Many people fall into it and give up halfway. However, this is where you need to believe that once you can persevere and break through that critical point, the results will definitely appear. This is a common feature of any compounding process. The most powerful outcomes are always delayed. Just like in philosophy, there's the law of quantity and quality. Quantitative changes, upon reaching a certain level, will transform into qualitative differences. That certain level is the breakthrough point, passing through the plateau of latent potential when we're building a habit. It's like a bamboo tree. For the first 5 years, no matter how ideal the environment, we can barely see it grow. But after 5 years, as if by magic, it starts to grow at a rate of a foot a day and can reach a height of 90 feet in just 6 weeks. It turns out that for those 5 years, the bamboo was accumulating its potential. During that time, it was growing deep roots into the ground, just waiting for the day to shoot up high. The deeper the roots, the bigger the tree. With that kind of change, how could one not become exceptional? So live like a bamboo tree. always remember that no matter how small a change is, it has value. If you only focus on the goal, you will fail. If you only focus on the result you want, mentally it's like locking yourself in a narrow mindset. The hidden assumption in any goal is the illusion that once I achieve my goal, I will be happy. This mindset is like a set of chains. It makes you postpone joy. I'll be only happy when I achieve my goal. But when you do achieve it, you definitely won't be as happy as you thought. Sometimes you'll feel a strange sense of emptiness instead. That's because you're already looking ahead to the next milestone. When you're fixated on a specific goal, your motivation is, I have to achieve this. And that motivation will push you forward. But once you reach the finish line, that fire of motivation will also die out. That's why many people fall back into old habits after completing a set goal. You need to remember that the point of building habits isn't to hit a goal just to win. It's about building a system of habits with a repeating and continuous cycle. So how do you build a system of habits? I'll get into that in more detail in the next section. But first, you need to immediately stop the results-oriented mindset when practicing any habit. The best way to stay motivated is to focus on the process. Focus on the present. You don't need to save up your happiness, and you don't need to imagine a successful outcome just to feel satisfied. You don't have to wait for any specific moment to allow yourself to be happy. You can be truly happy right now, throughout the entire process of maintaining that habit. And for sure, this mindset will make it much easier to persevere and be consistent. The secret to maintaining habits: know your identity. Research shows that behind every system of actions is a system of beliefs, and behaviors that are inconsistent with your identity will not last. What does this mean? Here you need to pay attention to the words identity and belief. Your beliefs and your identity have a huge impact on the behavioral changes you make. Before you want to do something, let your belief become that person. That is, before you implement a habit, you must define the kind of person you want to become. Who you believe you are will determine your behavior. The stronger the belief, the more consistently the behavior will be repeated. And the more the behavior is repeated, the more the belief will be reinforced, and your identity will become clearer. This is a sustainable and long-term cycle of development. It enables you to grow continuously and will lead you to do things that can change your own destiny. For example, if you want to maintain a running habit, you need to identify yourself as a runner. If you want to read more to write books or content, you must see yourself as a creator. If you don't know who you are before you act, you'll only ever get so far, or you'll always find the process difficult and challenging. So remember that habits are an expression of who you are. You must understand yourself first, know who you want to become. Then, with the belief of who you are, you can establish a system of habits that creates a happy and developing life for yourself. From this perspective, let's think backwards for a moment to realize something. We must stop labeling ourselves or others. For example, parents always want their children to be studious and self-motivated. Whenever they see their child watching TV or playing, they immediately scold them. Why are you so lazy about school? The labels I'm talking about here, like lazy, careless, or playful, act like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you keep applying these labels repeatedly, they can come back and become reality. Getting straight to the basic logic of habit formation. The book The Power of Habit also touched on this logic. We need to understand how a habit works before we act. This isn't just a piece of knowledge, it's how you can understand the deep-seated nature of habits. And if you don't get this, you'll be forever stuck in a cycle of starting and stopping. So what are the 4 steps? They are the cue, craving, response, and reward. Let's take an example. When you hear the Facebook message notification sound, that's the cue. As soon as you hear it, you immediately want to know who messaged you and what they want. That's the craving. Then you reach for your phone and open the message. That's your response.
Finally, after reading the message, you know who was looking for you and what they wanted to say. This has satisfied your need, and that is the reward. Think about it for a moment. Do you see that most of our daily actions are based on this four-step principle of habit operation? This includes everything from getting dressed, putting on shoes, turning on lights, brushing your teeth, to snacking, and so on. So you need to be aware that this is scary because once it starts, it's hard to stop. For example, you tell yourself, tonight I'm going to read 20 pages of a book. But as soon as you sit on the sofa, you immediately grab your phone. Next, you lie down, turn on the cool AC, and then open Facebook to scroll. After that, you move on to TikTok, and before you know it, the whole evening is gone.
These actions are a chain of behaviors in a habit loop that you've already formed. It makes it so you don't have to think at all. It just happens automatically. That's why you need to understand the operating principle of a habit. Only then can you overcome bad habits and act precisely to build good ones. So what's the right way to act? Next, we'll explore the 4 steps to maintaining habits. Step 1. Make it obvious. In reality, the strongest human sense is vision. It accounts for up to 90% of the total capacity of all senses in the body. If you can take full advantage of this visual grasp, you can successfully implement the cue stage of a habit. Let's say you want to develop a reading habit, but if your books are always piled up in a corner of the room and you only see them when you need them, how can you develop this habit? The way to make a habit an essential part of your life is to have it constantly in your line of sight. For myself, I often place books in all the places where I can see them and easily reach them, like on the sofa, the TV stand, my nightstand, or my desk, the places closest to my eye level. I also carry a small book in my backpack, so whenever I have free time, I can conveniently open it and read it. This principle is also similar when you want to change a bad habit, meaning you have to remove the triggers in your life. For instance, you get a craving for snacks in the afternoon, especially if you work in an office. But instead of buying junk food, sugary sweets, or milk tea, have fruit and nuts as a replacement and place them where you can easily see and grab them. You can get a boost of energy while maintaining your figure and health. No longer seeing junk food or not easily sitting down at the gaming desk, not easily using addictive, time-consuming apps, when there's no clear and frequent reminder, the behavior is much less likely to be triggered. From there, your bad habits will gradually be eliminated. Step 2. Make it attractive. There's a very important formula here that can motivate you to perform a good habit: habit stacking and temptation bundling. Take a look at this formula on the screen. Habit stacking is, after current habit, I will do a new habit I need to change. For example, after I take off my work clothes, I will put on my sneakers and go to the gym. After I finish this cup of coffee, I will read for an hour, and so on. As for temptation bundling, it means after a habit I need, I will do a habit I want. I use this method a lot myself because I'm very lazy about journaling, but my hobby is photography, so almost every day I take pictures of everything beautiful, interesting, or cool that I see, then I write a few lines to go with the picture. It makes my memories more colorful, and I've been able to maintain both habits in a very enjoyable way. In this case, journaling is the habit I need to do, and taking pictures is the habit I want to do. In psychology, this is also called temptation bundling. This is the result of the research by Professor David Premack, which means using high-frequency behaviors to reinforce low-frequency behaviors. With this method, you make performing the habit more attractive. So what if you find it hard to control your cravings? The answer here is to borrow the power of a group. Here, let's tap into our genetic memory. Our ancestors couldn't survive alone. Whether you faced wild animals or disasters, you always needed your tribe members by your side to feel safe and comfortable. In the video on the book Social that I mentioned before, the need to establish close relationships with others is deeply ingrained in our roots. So, based on this, borrow the power of a group to eliminate your bad habits. For example, join a running group or some other group with a shared interest or a training class. When you don't participate fully, you might get called out or even kicked out of the group. Of course, for some people, to avoid this, they will become more diligent and active. Step 3. Make it easy. The third step in changing habits is to make things easy to do. The biggest principle here is to reduce the difficulty. For example, if you want to maintain a gym routine, don't over-compare which gym is cheaper, which one has more equipment, better trainers, etc. Go to the one closest to your home, the one you can easily get to first. Reduce the friction to your action by optimizing your environment. In addition, maintain the 2-minute rule from the very first days of implementing a habit. You need to know that in life, there are always a few decisive moments. They will also make a big difference in your life. The moment you decide to cook or order takeout. The moment you decide to bike or drive to work. The moment you decide to scroll on your phone or read a book.
These moments are the forks in the road of your life. A good or bad day often depends on this chain of decisive moments. If you can accumulate more right moments throughout the day, they will ultimately lead you to a completely different result. Therefore, the author advises us that when starting a new habit, it should not take more than 2 minutes to avoid making it difficult to stick with. Instead of forcing yourself to read a book every night before bed, make it read 1 to 2 pages. The meaning of the 2-minute rule is that no matter what, you have to get yourself to do that first tiny step. Maintaining a habit is really hard, but if you make it easy to start, the next actions will follow. Of course, a small, humble action is actually very powerful. You have to believe that once you start doing the right things, everything else becomes much easier. And conversely, if you want to get rid of a bad habit, you have to create friction for that bad habit. If you can't stop looking at your phone, uninstall all the apps that waste your time. If you can't stop gaming, make it really hard to open a game. Step 4. Make it satisfying. The final step in changing habits is to make it satisfying. We have to understand that the reason bad habits are so hard to break is because they always provide us with an immediate sense of pleasure and satisfaction. When you play games, you can get achievements when you pass levels, or eating sweets will temporarily satisfy your current cravings. However, our brain tends to underestimate distant threats, just like a frog being boiled in water. The water heats up slowly and it doesn't know it's going to die. Bad habits bring immediate pleasure, but the consequences later will be terrible. And good habits are the complete opposite. Therefore, you must be cautious with anything that can be enjoyed quickly. The sooner it is, the more you have to ask yourself whether it will bring long-term benefits. To have a good habit, all you need to do is add a little bit of immediate happiness to any habit that provides long-term benefits. And conversely, add feelings of discomfort and pain to bad habits. One of the most effective ways to increase immediate satisfaction is to track your habits regularly. It's very simple. Get a habit tracker and stick it on the wall where you can easily see it. Mark it as complete every time you successfully perform an action. This action, though simple, is actually a process of mentally rewarding yourself, and it will help you make continuous progress. But there are 2 things I want to emphasize to everyone here. First, it's better to struggle through than to give up. That is, no matter what, don't quit. Because at the very least, when you persevere, you still have a chance to maintain your identity. You should remember that quitting twice in a row means you're starting a bad habit. Second, don't let the measure become the goal. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. This is a very famous management quote. For example, when the entire company's focus is on KPIs, employees will only try to game this metric, but in reality, they won't be able to do similar work. If you're just going through the motions to complete your habit tracker, it has no meaning. Tracking is just the beginning and a method to help us form good habits, but don't treat it as the ultimate goal. Don't live to track and don't live just to focus on the goal. Conclusion. All right, that covers all 4 essential steps to forming good habits and eliminating bad ones. Overall, I think this video summary of the book is quite comprehensive, but I still want to leave you with some equally important reminders that I've gathered after reading this book. First, this whole book emphasizes a key point. Creating habits is about daily accumulation, a process of building compound interest, a long-term investment of time. But our time is limited, so how do we know if we're investing correctly in the right habits? Here we need to consider the differences between each person in this life, because everyone has their own path. Your first job is to discover the path where you excel, the areas you need to improve and change. The book provides an answer. Do the things that you find interesting, but others find boring.
The sign that you're suited for something isn't just whether you like it, but whether you can endure the difficulty of the task more easily than most people. Others find it hard, but you think it's no big deal. It doesn't bother you. Or when you're doing it, you feel very much in your element.
Second, what I want to say is don't become too dependent on habits. You need to know that habits have their pitfalls too. The reality is that sometimes, when something becomes second nature, the end result can become mediocrity. If a person is stuck in a daily routine, everything they do is just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it becomes automatic. Over-reliance on habits can prevent us from making breakthroughs. So how can we avoid this? The answer is don't expect your habits to be a straight line, but expect them to be a curve, then another curve, and another. To do this, you must force yourself to practice with intention. For the method of deliberate practice, you can learn more from this video. I'll leave the link here. At the same time, the highest state of deliberate practice is to be able to enter a state of flow. Flow is not a habit. Flow is something you need to focus on completely, absolutely in the process. The most correct way to form a habit is to get yourself into a state of flow, then master it. But importantly, you must try to practice deliberately to do even better and gradually become a master. The final thing I've concluded is that we need to regularly reflect and review ourselves and don't let our identity hijack us. You see, earlier I emphasized the importance of belief and personal identity when forming a habit. But if you become too dependent on it, when you don't achieve it, you will feel incredibly lost, disappointed, and become weak. One final word to sum up today's video is that these small habits don't simply add up. They have a multiplying relationship. They stack on top of each other and ultimately create compounding effects that completely change your life. After forming a new habit, it will trigger a series of other positive habit changes. Just like for me, after forming a reading habit, my life has undergone many profound changes. It has had a huge impact on me. If you can find a good starting point in your life, commit to it, and let your life change dramatically, that is a wonderful and reliable thing. I wish all of us success in finding the leverage for our lives and using the system of habit building as a tool to make our lives more meaningful. Thank you for listening. If you found this video useful, please share it with those who need it, support me with a like, and don't forget to leave your feelings or thoughts in the comments below so we can all learn from each other. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to catch the latest videos every week. Once again, thank you. See you in the next videos.